Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I keep you up to date with everything happening in the gaming world. And today we got a new exclusive game that was announced for none other than the Nintendo Switch, a game that could end up really surprising a few people. We also have a new juicy rumor about the next generation of Xbox, and also, is E3 in trouble? At first, I didn't really think it was in trouble, but it's starting to look a little bit more shaky, and I'll explain why here in just a moment. There is plenty of other stuff to talk about as well, and we may even see a Square Enix remake in the future, and this one will certainly get people excited, so stay tuned for all of that. But first, let's go through some of the quick news on some game updates and a big time release date. Yeah, that's right, what may end up being the final big first-party exclusive for the PlayStation 4 has finally got a release date. Ghost of Tsushima is officially set to release this summer on June 26th, and this announcement was paired with a pretty awesome trailer. Not only does it show some of the beautiful landscapes that you will be traveling through in Ghost of Tsushima, which by the way is an open world game. It's hard to believe that an open world game can look this good, but I have to hand it to Sucker Punch and Sony here. Sony really excels when it comes to production values, and Ghost of Tsushima is looking phenomenal from a visual standpoint. It also looks like it's going to have an engaging story about the revenge from a samurai, so really I'm just hoping the gameplay is good now. That still remains to be seen, but I'll definitely get to test this one out when it does release. But they did also announce a collector's edition for Ghost of Tsushima, which includes a steelbook case, a war banner, a wrapping cloth, a 48-page mini art book by Dark Horse, a cloth world map, several digital items, and the big one here is a replica polyresin mask and stand to display for you collectors out there. I'm not really blown away by this collector's edition, but the thing is, it's only $170, which isn't a bad overall price for something like this. As a collector myself, $170 isn't too bad. Either way though, Ghost is looking excellent, and it won't be too much longer to get to play it ourselves on June 26th. And speaking of exclusives, yes, a new game was announced today exclusively for the Nintendo Switch, and that would be Prinny 1-2 Exploded and Reloaded, which is a remaster of the original Prinny games for the PlayStation Portable. I think a lot of people probably have never even heard of these games on the PSP, as the Disgaea franchise is a little bit more on the niche side, so when you have a spin-off of it, there probably wasn't a huge following for these games. But I've heard a lot of good about these games. I hear they're very solid action platformers and apparently brutally difficult. So I think if you jump into this game, you will definitely need to know that ahead of time. Just because it looks cute, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I myself like difficult games, and Disgaea is actually one of my favorite JRPG franchises. I really like the personality of those games. I'm going to check this one out for myself. It releases sometimes in autumn of 2020, and like I said before, I don't think a lot of people really even know about these games, so I'm sure it will be like a brand new game for a lot of people. Now, we also got a new trailer for the Trials of Mana remake today with a lot of new gameplay, specifically focusing on its combat. This game truly does look excellent as well. It certainly doesn't seem like Square Enix is taking any shortcuts for Trials of Mana, but it seems this game is heavily focusing on chaining attacks together, and you actually get to choose a party of 3, and that's the thing too, is that depending who is in your party will also affect how the story plays out, which could give it a lot of replayability. The combat though looks like a lot of fun, and there's actually over 300 abilities in this game to learn, so honestly, I have pretty high expectations for this one. I'm thinking this may end up being one of the best JRPGs of the entire generation. Let me know though, are you excited for Trials of Mana? Now with some of the quick news out of the way, let's move on to some of the bigger stuff, and that starts with E3 and the possibility it may either be delayed or flat out cancelled. This is of course linked to health concerns surrounding coronavirus as it continues to spread worldwide, and even though the United States still isn't widespread, many companies have chosen to be cautious going forward. We've seen this with PAX East, where a lot of publishers and developers skipped out last minute, and then GDC has been cancelled. Well, actually, I believe it was delayed until further notice, but we'll see if that really does come back this year. I'm not really too confident on that one, but we are starting to see that people are taking this coronavirus very serious, as they should be. I've said this several times in previous videos, but no matter how excited you are to see these conferences and big game reveals, health is the #1 biggest priority. And we don't want to spread this coronavirus even further. Right now, we need to try and find a way to contain this virus as smart people across the world try and find a vaccine. Nonetheless, with both PAX East and GDC having issues, a lot of people have started turning towards E3 and wondering what kind of state is it in. Will it be canceled or delayed? And at first, it seemed like there was no concern about this. The ESA announced just a few days ago that they are going full steam ahead and that E3 will remain open. However, things can change drastically, and that is what's happening right now because Los Angeles has declared a state of emergency, which is, that's serious business, and of course that is where E3 is located. Now this changes everything, and the questions are once again popping up, so we once again have to ask, how does the coronavirus affect E3? Well, ESA has once again responded, but has changed their tune slightly as they are now saying they are actively assessing the situation. Now that doesn't mean anything right now, and do remember that E3 is still 3 months away, so a lot of things can still change in that amount of time. Whether that be a good change or a bad change is still up in the air, but this is the first time that I've really felt that there is a legitimate question surrounding E3 and whether it will actually be happening this year. Now, we know that ESA is absolutely not going to want to cancel E3, as there is already questions surrounding E3 about, is it worth it for these companies or not, as big publishers like Sony has already bailed on E3, and then you have Nintendo, which while does have an E3 presence, they also have Nintendo Direct and don't actually need a stage presence. And that's the thing. Publishers may be forced into doing their own digital conferences, similar to how Nintendo does things now. Could we see Xbox do something similar? They may end up having to do their own digital version of E3 as well. That shouldn't be too big of a deal though. I do like hearing the crowd's reactions to big reveals and everything, but as I said earlier, health is the #1 most important thing here. I also think that a digital E3 could be great as well, but for the time being, let's just keep in mind that E3 still is 3 months away. A lot of things can happen in that amount of time, so let's not worry too much for the time being, and hopefully we see some improvements in that time frame. But no matter what, I will keep you updated on this subject going forward. Moving on though, the producer for Final Fantasy VII Remake, Yoshinori Kitase, had something very interesting to say during an interview with a professional Japanese wrestler, Kenny Omega. And while that may be odd, Yoshinori was asked if he would like to see more Parasite Eve in the future. And his response was that it would be a waste not to use these characters. Now, he did note that he doesn't know of any plans for Parasite Eve going forward, but he is showing interest in Parasite Eve, which could be key here, and I'll explain why. Last year, Square Enix did file a trademark for Parasite Eve, and so far nothing has happened with this, or at least that we know about. Now, do keep in mind here that this trademark was not a renewal, so it could mean that Square Enix does have plans for the Parasite Eve franchise. Square Enix has also shown interest in making more remakes beyond just Final Fantasy VII. This is something that they had said just last year. In fact, Square Enix is also releasing a Trials of Mana remake next month. We just talked about this earlier, so could they possibly return to Parasite Eve and maybe remake it? Capcom has had a lot of success with the Resident Evil remakes, and Parasite Eve really is the other big horror game from the 90s. In fact, it's pretty consistently on fans' top 10 JRPG list of all time because, yes, it's a really weird JRPG, but it's a really good one too. It really isn't like any other JRPG I've ever played, but hey, maybe they could bring it back in a big way. I think it could translate very well. They might have to change up some gameplay mechanics to it, but I think that it would fit really well with modern gamers. I think we could see some success with it if they do, but hey, I'm just speculating. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't really rule it out either. But I'll ask you, would you like to see Parasite Eve return? And if so, would you rather a remake or a brand new game? Let me know in the comments below. Now for the last topic of the day, and I will make this one quick, but there is a new rumor that has popped up that Xbox Lockhart will be shown off pretty soon. And while I wouldn't usually talk about this on the channel, this is coming from Diller Gaming, the same guy who leaked Xbox Series X's targeted specs ahead of time, which was 100% accurate. So I do think that he has shown that he does know some things, and hey, we may finally get to see Lockhart soon. I have no idea as to when, but based off what we do know, this thing should be around the $300 mark and be a 4 teraflop machine. And I know you probably hear that 4 teraflops and are probably thinking, well, that's weaker than the Xbox One X, but that's the thing. Lockhart, from my understanding, is meant to be a 1080p 60 frames per second machine, and yes, it is more powerful than the Xbox One X. This is something that people don't really talk about that much, but this generation of consoles, the processors are really out of whack. While yes, the Xbox One X does have a good GPU, it still does have a weak processor, which is why we still see a lot of games stick to that 30 frames per second mark. With Lockhart though, it will likely be a much more balanced machine and will be faster than the Xbox One X. It also may be the best option for consumers that don't have 4K TVs as well, as this will be aiming at 1080p rather than 4K. Either way though, I do think that this is a smart move by Xbox, as it will have an incredibly attractive price if it does hit that $300 mark, and of course they will also have the Power Tower Xbox Series X. So theoretically, and we don't know the PlayStation 5 specs, but theoretically, Xbox would have the advantage in both the price as well as power with the Xbox Series X and what I assume will be called Xbox Series S. But yeah, let's keep our eyes peeled and hopefully we get some Lockhart information relatively soon. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.